Yeah, so I would say for like an evil campaign, the first thing to identify is getting on the same page in what we define as evil, you know? So one of the best tools I've seen for basically determining alignment is, you know, instead of breaking it down to moral and immoral, right? Because everybody's morality might even be different. It's just what is your character focus on, you know? If your character is, their decisions are based off of, you know, the good of the many outweighs the good of the few, you're probably looking at a good character, right? Whereas like an evil character is going to be looking more at, you know, it's okay to take away from somebody else to benefit yourself, you know? So, and that's not necessarily like the classical idea of evil, but it's the idea that, you know, are you more benefiting the many, or are you more benefiting the individual, you know? So like when you're looking at like, say, a lawful evil character, a lawful evil character is willing to show no mercy to their opponent, right? Because in a way, you are showing them mercy by not having them live and suffer humiliation, you know? So like it's evil characters often they justify like their evilness through something else. Chaotic evil characters, you know, I think that if you approach the comedy route, that doesn't disqualify the emotional beats either. So a perfect example of a chaotic evil character in media is Rick from Rick and Morty. Mm-hmm. Like he is an emotionally distraught, chaotic evil character who's often used for comedy as well. You have lighter episodes, you have darker episodes. You don't have to stick to one. But I think that the boundary thing is a really excellent thing to put up front, which is, first, if you're planning on running an evil campaign, you have to answer some of those questions first. What does evil look like? What are we okay with? What are we not okay with? And frame it as an evil campaign. And if it's one of those things like what you're describing, Ian, where you had a certain idea, but your players are starting to think that it's turning into an evil thing, first I would identify, are their characters shifting to an evil alignment, or are they just making an evil decision? Because that's a great thing to differentiate, right? Yeah. Because you can have lawful good characters make evil decisions, you know, but not like give up the fact that they're lawful good, you know? So like, for example, like, this serial killer, I have to kill them. To them, they might interpret that as an evil decision because if they're a redemption paladin, they never take a life. But that doesn't mean they're not lawful good anymore, you know? So it's different, distinguishing the individual decision of I don't want to die, let's run away. That isn't that many people would say that's an evil decision. That doesn't make them evil characters though. Now you've got to decide though, how many evil decisions do you make before you're an evil character, you know? Right. Like what are the ways that what's that definition, you know? And by getting on the same page of what we're willing to explore and what we're willing to not explore, that really helps guide your evil campaign. But the biggest thing with, I think, because a lot of DMs report that their evil campaigns really just fall to infighting. And I've seen that before too, you know, Adam, one time I ran your young adult group and they all decided to make evil characters for a one shot. They ended up betraying each other and getting picked off one at a time, and that ended in a TPK. Yeah. You can sometimes identify, again, the gradients of evil. So it's, you know, we're playing evil characters and we made an evil decision, but what's the greater evil? And are we going to be a lesser evil? You know, I think that's another way to kind of help it, like help you navigate how to set it up from a structural perspective.
Yeah. The best, the best kind of radio drama, if you can call it that, it was on YouTube instead, produced by Dropout, I think. It featured a whole bunch of prominent figures in the voice acting community, as well as around the Critical Role adjacent area. And I forget what it's called too. It's probably gonna bother me. But they ran a something like the Blood Keep or something like that, where it was essentially Lord of the Rings. It was essentially the Lord of the Rings without copyright, where you had like a dark master, and it was them reacting to what happened at the fall of Sauron, at literally the end of Return of the King. Spoiler alert. And like what happens when the Dark Master disappears, and it's all the minions interacting in the castle and then going, wait, we have to go get the crown back because the crown was stolen by the little halflings. Quick, go stop the halflings. And it's them being sort of inept and silly as they kind of clash and bumble over each other trying to go get the crown. But you have like a Death Knight who was devout to the Dark Lord and is all about, he found me and I must please him. And he has very different motivations to like the Spider Queen that was working in the dungeon. And the Dark Wizard, and they have their own inner struggles of, oh yeah, I don't really like this guy, or I always think that you're such a brown noser to the Dark Lord. And it's the same kind of interpersonal relationships in a way of a party, but you're serving a dark entity, but they can still have the same power structures as a king in a kingdom. It's just the motivations are different, and you can reframe it as because they weren't meant to be good guys. They know, but they could enjoy their work. You could have an alchemist that really enjoys making terrible potions, terrible from our sensibilities, but amazing and beautiful from theirs. And perspective can define their own reality. So it shouldn't devolve into infighting if they also come from a structure. So they have like a captain, or they have like a beastmaster who, instead of summoning beasts, he's summoning like extraplanar shadow demons, but he calls them like Mr. Fluffy. And it's like, these are, and when they get hurt, they go, no, they care about their pets. And it's not that everything is grim and terrible. It's just the lens, the mirror is the other way. It was really funny. It was played for comedy, but also all the characters are doing, from our perspective, evil actions, but from theirs, they're just doing their job, and they're just trying to serve the Dark Lord, who saved them from adversity or gave them a purpose, or they can have motivations in service to that entity. And then it comes into, if you had a good faction in your campaign that had a certain goal, what would happen if you had the antithesis of that? And what if you had, a dark army? What is the dark army's purpose? What is their goal? What are they trying to do? And by defining those things, that also allows you to make little missions for who, what the party can do. Is the party an elite team of thieves or conquerors, or are they the C squad and the A and B squads got wrecked and now it's just the C squad and you got to figure it out? There's a lot of possibility there from a narrative standpoint, especially if you start framing it as this is a kingdom structure, or this is a this is a faction, and the faction has goals and benefits and dental, I don't know. But then they're all working together. They can still have their little quips with each other, but in the end, their end goal or their end allegiance is the same.
Yeah, I think that the key thing that you identified with your specific situation, Ian, is that your players are at a choice point right now where, in their perspective, there are two evil forces that are going to fight each other. And although, like alignment perspective, Devas and Kalimvor aren't considered evil, from a decision perspective, again, they're basically fighting against two evil forces, because I'm sorry, but wiping out an entire continent is an evil decision. Destroying all sentient life is an evil decision.
Or is it for the greater good?
Exactly, and that's the biggest thing, is sometimes the greatest evils convince themselves they're fighting for the greatest good.
Yeah.
They're basically thinking through an evil decision. That doesn't mean they're going to start an evil campaign unless that evil decision is to start following the orders of a necromancer, And I mean, it could even be a thing where they're trying to be the man on the inside, where they're like trying to be almost like a double agent to like understand how the necromancer thinks, but then you have to think through, does he have detect thoughts so that he kind of understands what they're trying to do? Giving them a clear out as well of like a Kobayashi Maru. Like, you don't necessarily have to follow Kelemvor, but you don't have to follow the necromancer. And by choosing a third option, that does not make you evil, So that could be a solution as well. But you just want to present that to them clearly so that they're not stuck in, these are our only two options. What are we going to pick so our characters don't die?
Thank you so much for listening to some of our podcast highlights. This podcast is part of the Darkmoor Podcast Network. If you want to support the content creators, feel free to visit our Patreon. And please, game responsibly.